right, welcome back to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. Austin Vickrey, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, Steve?
Man, it is so good to have you back with us. Today you're going to be doing a topic called Extended Techniques for Sax, and so we're really excited to have you with us. I really want to thank Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners and Duke Energy for their continued support helping to present the studio. After these live sessions, all of these videos get recorded and put in the studio, and they're free. And you can also listen to all of these sessions on the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast. That is presented by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. These have been great. Austin's done a bunch of them already. He started with an approach to playing lead alto saxophone, but then we went all kinds of different places. We've covered baritone sax basics. Austin's been involved in our What I Love About series, which takes like a deep dive into musicians that have inspired local professionals and educators that work with us in these Young Lions programs. And Austin's done a bunch. Charlie Parker, Paul Desmond, Phil Woods, Stan Getz, Chris Potter, and they've been fantastic. So I encourage everybody to check those out. And there's a bunch of other sessions from Austin and others that are up in the studio. So please go there, clearwaterjazz.com/education, and then click on the Young Lions program in the studio and you'll find it. Or you can search wherever you stream your podcasts. So Austin is a saxophonist. There's no surprise there. Woodwind specialist, composer, arranger, music educator, currently resides in St. Petersburg, Florida, but born and raised in Utah. And he really developed a love for music at a very young age. And he's just such a great educator and terrific musician. We're so lucky to have him part of these sessions. He holds a Bachelor of Music in Saxophone Performance from the University of Utah and a Master of Music in Jazz Studies from the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. If you have a chance to listen to Austin play, please go out and find him. He has participated as part of Clearwater Jazz Holiday performances, including our Wonderlust music series, and is awesome. And so I encourage everybody to go check out and listen to Austin. He's currently the adjunct woodwind instructor for John Hopkins Middle School in St. Petersburg, Florida. He's got a big heart for sharing his gift, talents, and educating the next generation of jazz lovers. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to my friend Austin. Welcome back, man.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that introduction and for the kind words. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to do these master classes. I love sharing, what I've discovered with young players and other players. So I'm really excited to be here and to do these master classes. So today, I'm going to be talking about some extended techniques for saxophone. This includes like just kind of a myriad of different things that saxophone players can add to their, what I like to call bag of tricks. And some of them are essential for playing big band charts and reading, playing the style of the music that you're trying to play. And my next master class is going to be, the next one's going to be about rhythm, but the third master class I'm going to do is going to talk about playing saxophone style and playing in the style. So it's really critical to learn some of these techniques. Some of them are going to be super fun, kind of funny, and they can add real character to your improvisations. And I love to do that. I love to kind of catch people off guard in some of when I improvise, and I kind of have free reign to do what I want on gigs. And I will make use of some of these techniques that I'm going to discuss here today, but they're useful in a lot of different situations. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to have a PDF that I will send to you, Steve, so you can put it up on the Clearwater Jazz Holiday education site, and anybody watching this video can go ahead and access this PDF, but I'm going to use it It's a keynote. I'm going to use it to conduct my masterclass today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. There's my screen, and we're going to pull up my my PowerPoint or / keynote, and I'll be jumping out of here periodically to visually demonstrate some of the techniques that we're talking about today. So today's masterclass titled Extended Techniques for Saxophone by me, presented for Clearwater Jazz Holiday Jazz Masters virtual sessions. So to perform the extended techniques, a saxophone player must have some basic techniques down pretty well. And this masterclass, I noted, is for intermediate to advanced saxophonists, although beginners who are watching this are totally welcome to glean some knowledge here. But saxophone players should really have command of these following things: breath support and air usage, being able to fill the horn with a lot of air and have proper breath support from down below, using the diaphragm and abdomen muscles, really having that good support for air. It's really, really necessary. Having proper hand position and finger movement. If I stop the sharing of the screen real quick, if I can find my, whoops, my mouse is weird. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and talk about hand position, just basic hand position for saxophone players. I'm going to demonstrate on alto right now, but the basic hand position should be, and this should be a review for most folks, but I want to make sure that we cover this. Hand position should be relaxed and natural. The instrument is designed ergonomically to fit your hand. Now, everyone has different size hands, but in general, on the left hand, as you can see in my videos flipped, so it should appear as if my left hand is holding the instrument. If I take my hand away and just relax the wrist and relax my hand, now this is just I'm relaxing my hand and holding my arm up, but when you lower your arm to your side, if you're watching this and you want to recreate a good hand position, lower your arm to the side and just relax everything. Just relax your muscles in your arm, your wrist, your fingers, and your hand. And then you can bring your arm up slowly, and you see kind of the shape that my hand is. That actually fits really well right here. And I only had to enlarge it just a little bit, but that's where your hand should be placed. And this is for the left hand. You should be able to move your fingers minimally. We do not want fingers coming up out of the air and flying fingers. That actually slows down your movement when you're playing the saxophone. If you want to play fast passages, you want to try to keep your fingers really close to the keys. I have an exercise for that, but we're not talking about that right now. I can talk about that maybe in another masterclass. And then also for the right hand, I'll just stand up very quickly so you can see. If I take my hand away and relax it and then bring it back up, it should just fit right onto the saxophone. So making sure that the fatty parts of your fingers are touching, centered on the pearls, and then the thumb behind usually fits on the thumb rest, centering right around where the nail meets the skin, so the cuticle. You want to center your thumb rest right around the cuticle. Again, everyone's hand position or hand size is different. So you want to adjust for that. We just don't want to over grip the saxophone. We want to grip it comfortably, as if you were just raising your hand to shake somebody's hand, which is coming back. Coming back to shaking hands. Fully vaxxed, I've been shaking hands. So anyway, that's good hand position. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. And there we go. All right. There we go. So hand position. Embouchure. Embouchure is how we hold our mouth to the mouthpiece, making sure that we have a good embouchure, flat chin, bottom lip rolled over our bottom teeth about halfway. Depends on your structure of your lips, but just about halfway is pretty good for most people. And then having the top teeth touching the mouthpiece, making sure that we form just kind of a ring of muscles right around the mouthpiece, having a good embouchure. Excuse me. And then being able to articulate well, using the tongue well, using the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed, and being able to make a very clear and concise tone starting with the tongue. So that's really important. All these basic things are super important. Most saxophone players should have under their belt before they start attempting the extended techniques. So let's move on. Extended techniques for saxophone. This involves the manipulation of pitch, air column, which I'm going to refer to right here. Air column is the column of air coming through your trachea out into the mouthpiece of the instrument. Fingering combinations. We're going to use some different fingering combinations to do some certain other techniques, and articulation to create a wider palette of colors, tones, and sounds. So these extended techniques can really enhance your playing and raise your playing to a different level. So I think part of learning the saxophone is learning these extended techniques. I got to study with really fantastic teachers teaching me a lot of different techniques that I can add to my bag of tricks. So here we go. Let's keep going. And here's the list of techniques that we're going to talk about today. And as with my presentations, I tend to be very detailed, and I'll try not to get too bogged down in my language, but I really enjoy being detailed about this. So we're going to talk about pitch bending, scoops, falls, and doits, vibrato, wide versus narrow, fast versus slow. We're going to talk about altissimo, which is the extending of the higher range or upper range of the saxophone. We're going to talk about circular breathing. This is an interesting trick that a lot of saxophone players use, and when I use it, some people go, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And it's called circular breathing. It's taking a breath without stopping the sound while you're playing. So I'm going to talk about how to produce that, how to make that happen. Double and triple tonguing. Double tonguing is a common thing amongst wind instruments, including brass and other wind instruments. Triple tonguing is something that I think there's a label for it. I'm going to call it triple tonguing, but I'll explain it as we go. It's something that I've kind of done. I'm not sure if it's a technique that's being taught in colleges or schools or whatnot, but it's something that I use, and I'm going to explain it. Muffle tonguing, and I think Tammy Danielson discussed this in one of her master classes. I was fortunate to be able to jump in on. I think she called it another name, but I can't remember. But muffle tonguing is used a lot in jazz and bebop style playing. We're going to talk about slap tonguing. This is a topic that I get approached about a lot because I do love to use the slap tongue. So we're going to talk about how to slap tongue, how to create it, using the breath and tongue to create a popping sound. We'll talk about the growl, manipulating the tone so it sounds like you're growling. It's a very interesting technique and used by a lot of saxophonists. And finally, we'll discuss some subtone and multiphonics techniques. And there's other techniques out there that I'm sure I've left off this list, but I wanted to make sure we had enough time to cover as much as we can in as a short of time as we can, because I can drone on a little bit. So here we go. Let's talk about the first one, pitch bending, scoops, falls, and doits. So these techniques add character to the notes you're playing. Very useful in improvisation and reading jazz ensemble parts. in improvisations, it's a form of expression. You can bend a note to give a little bit of extra sparkle or oomph to the notes that you're playing. And there are jazz ensemble parts where you're reading and it actually tells you by a certain mark, like a written mark, to scoop a note, often indicated by a kind of like an arc bending upwards towards the note. Now, one thing I do have to say, scoops, falls, and doits, especially scoops, can be overused. And when you overuse them, in my opinion, it can sound immature or inexperienced or not professional. So you want to avoid overusing some of these things in your improvisation. If you notice in big band parts or jazz ensemble parts, they're not used often. They're used very specifically for a specific reason. So you want to make sure that you're treating these with respect and not overusing them, because there's the scoop disease of, I will say, some high school players, when they're first learning to do it, they're just using it all the time. And it's I'm not saying it's bad, but it sounds high school, okay? And high school is a place where we're developing things. So we want to be professional. We do want to develop. We do want to practice. But we want to make sure that we're not overusing it in the professional world, because it can sound like you haven't moved on from that initial phase of learning. So we want to make sure that we're using it with discretion. So let's get into it. Pitch bending primer. Pitch bending is a result of the manipulation of the air column, the embouchure, and lip and jaw pressure. So all three of these things come into account when we're trying to bend the pitch, either from higher to lower or from lower to higher. We can do both, and I will talk about both. So to talk about pitch bending, I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to demonstrate it, okay? So first, you're going to attempt to bend the pitch using just the mouthpiece and the reed. And I will demonstrate how that works. I will switch my screen for you in just a few minutes. Then you're going to start blowing through the mouthpiece to create a high pitch sound. So while you continue to blow, you're going to open the jaw slightly while maintaining lip contact with the reed and mouthpiece. And I mean the bottom lip, okay? We want to make sure that the bottom lip is not leaving the reed. It's got to be in contact with the reed. So you're just moving your jaw. So also, while you're blowing, so this is at the same time that you're lowering your jaw, you want to slowly form the syllable ah, okay, like in the back of the throat and the back of the tongue. So lowering the back of the tongue will help create this ah, almost like you're yawning. This opens the throat, or say air column, and allows for the pitch to bend, for the pitch bend to happen gradually. Now, when you do this, this should make the pitch bend lower or go lower in pitch. Doing the opposite will make the pitch bend higher. So now I'm going to go ahead and come back to my screen. So you should be able to see me now. Now I've got my alto saxophone mouthpiece right here. I'm going to make sure my reed is wet and we're ready to go. You just heard a little bit of the high pitch. So I've got the high pitch going. So I'm just going to blow a general mouthpiece pitch. So it sounds pretty high, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and lower my jaw while also lowering the back of my tongue, and this should create the pitch bend. And it's going to go lower. I'm going to do this gradually so that you can see, and it's very subtle, so it takes a lot of control to do. But here we go. So I lowered as much as I could until the tone stops, the reed stops vibrating, because there's not enough pressure to do it. Now, a lot of that pitch bend was done with the back of the tongue being lowered, right? When we play the saxophone, we have a certain syllable that we use to say we're not actually speaking, but that's where the tongue is formed. If I say the syllable like A or E, the back of the tongue is moving to create those syllables. The same thing works when we're not using our voice and we're just blowing through. It manipulates the air column and the reed becomes our vocal cords. That's how this works, okay? So when we normally do pitch higher and lower, we've got our larynx here. And it higher, when we go high, it goes up and restricts the vocal cords so that we have a higher pitch. When we go low, I don't know if you can see my Adam's apple. Oh, you can see it moving up and down, okay? The same principle works on playing saxophone and bending pitch, only we're not using the vocal cords. We're using the back of the tongue and the throat to control, just like the larynx controls the high and low pitches of our vocal cords. So it's the same principle. Now, I also assist with the jaw and relaxing the jaw or opening it, but keeping the lips on the mouthpiece. So saxophone players can try this at home. Get your mouthpiece out, get your reed on, and just make a pitch like you would normally play. I'm thinking like hey or tay. Okay, that's where my general tongue falls when I play that. And then I'm going to go tail like that. Only I'm not using my voice. It's just like that. So no voice involved. I'm going to do it one more time. And I'm actually going to turn to the side so maybe you can see some of what's happening in my lips. I know I've got the beard going, but. So that's kind of how we're trying to create the pitch bend. Now I'm pitch bending from a high pitch to a low. So if I want to do low to high, I have to start at the relaxed position. So that's why we start teaching it in the high position going to the low. So if we're doing this again, I'm going to go high to low and then hold where it's low. So there's my embouchure. It's kind of low. My jaw is more low. My lips are more relaxed. The back of my throat is open. And then I'm going to start there and tighten up and push up gradually. This takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. You can use a tuner to help you, and it can show you how far you're going up and down on your pitch. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to start low. I'm going to bend the pitch up. So low to high. Now you can do that. I'm doing this gradually just to get the idea of it, but we want to ultimately to do a scoop, we're going to do it very quickly. So it could be so I'm going low to high, and I can do a pitch bend down. A lot of that is inside. It's the tongue that's really doing a lot of this. The jaw is very slightly moved, so not a lot. You have to experiment and try to get the idea, but if you listen to this video back, or if you have a question about how to do that, you can reach out to me for sure. I'm happy to help in that respect. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So you should be able to see my PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead and keep this in the non-play mode so that you can see it. Scooping, we just talked about this. Now, we did the primer, so let's go back to the saxophone, and I'm assembling my saxophone right now, my alto. It says try bending the pitch down on one of the upper register notes, a G, an A, a B, or C, with the octave key pressed. I also have a note that says, have a tuner in front of you and see if you can bend the pitch by 1/2 step. Then try to go by a whole step. Some of them can go further. Some of them really can't. It just depends on the note. So I'm going to start with a high, I'm just going to pick a B on saxophone. If you play saxophone, you'll know what that is. It's your first finger down and the octave key. And I will stop the screen share so you can see. So here we are right here. And I'm going to start with the pitch. Here's what the pitch sounds like. Okay, that's saxophone B. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to apply the pitch bend down from the original pitch of B. So here's what that sounds like. So I tried to bend that approximately 1/2 step to like a B flat. Now, you want to experiment with this to see if you can go even lower, just for fun, because it's going to give you more control. So I'm going to see if I can go lower than a B flat. So here we go. So you could hear I went pretty low, and I didn't have a tuner in front of me like I told you you all should. And honestly, at this point, everybody should be able to have a tuner with your mobile device or an iPad or something, a smartphone. There are so many free tuners out there. Just go onto your app store or wherever you get your apps from and download a tuner for free. The best one I like is called Tonal Energy. I love that one. I know a lot of musicians and teachers use Tonal Energy. It's so much fun, and it's great if you can broadcast it to kids as teachers. You can see the little green face when you're in tune. But it's a fantastic one. So that is the pitch bend going from high to low. So if you want to create a scoop, let's go back to sharing the screen real quick. If you want to create a scoop, here it is. To scoop the pitch up, start with a lowered pitch. So you want to start at the lowered tone, which means an open jaw, a little slightly open jaw, and more of an open throat so that the pitch is down. And relax the embouchure just a bit. Have a tuner in front of you. Try to play one of the pitches bent and then bring your embouchure and jaw pressure back to normal. This is how you scoop, okay? Indicated by an upwards curved line before a note on sheet music. So here it is. I'm going to do it on a saxophone B very slowly. There's your scoop. That's slowly. So if I want to do it faster, I can create a faster scoop. And again, I'm not using much jaw movement, slightly, if at any, if all, if at any, if all, I can't talk right now, I'm sorry, if any at all. Doing a lot within on the tongue. And I wish there was like an x-ray where you could kind of see what's happening over here. But there isn't. So it's about that manipulation of air column mostly. The jaw plays kind of a stability role and a support role. It's mostly the air column and the back of the tongue that is going to create those scoops. So, you know, if I'm going to play something that scoops, I can go. So there's a little bit there on how you can apply the scoops. Now, we're going to talk about some other aspects of pitch bending. Oh, let me come back to this. Oh, did we repeat? Oh, there we go. Okay. Addendum to scoop. I think I had an extra page there. Yep, I did. Okay. There we go. Pitch bending, addendum to scooping. To really master pitch bending and scooping, a good thing to practice is to attempt 1, a siren noise, and 2, playing a major scale. I'm going to adjust this because I wanted to qualify it. I mean on the mouthpiece only. The mouthpiece only. I will adjust that so when I send that in, it will say that. But you want to try to do this on the mouthpiece only. So, number 1, a siren. You can create a siren type of sound on your mouthpiece. So you want to start at the high pitch, gradually bend the pitch in the opposite direction, and then come back up. So I'll stop the share. Here's the siren I'm going to create on the mouthpiece. So I ran out of breath there. But it's ba, and you want to try to create that. That teaches you control. And I know if there are high school band directors watching this, you're going to hate me. Because your kids, once they discover the siren, or parents are not going to be happy. Because the siren, it's teaching you pitch control. So that's the excuse you give your teacher or your parents. But just if you're a student, make sure you're doing it at a proper time. Okay, practice time is the time to do it, not when your teacher is trying to teach you something, and not when your parents are not at like 10 o'clock at night when everybody's trying to sleep. Okay, so but you do want to practice this stuff. All right, so let's see. Let's go back. And let's look at number 2, a major scale. You can actually perform a major scale on your mouthpiece, okay? You want to start at a very low pitch and attempt to play an ascending major scale. Using a tuner will assist you in accurately hitting each pitch. So have a tuner in front of you if you haven't done this before. You can still rely on your ear, okay? But I only recommend that for the seasoned players, okay? But if you're just attempting this for the first time, I would highly recommend having a tuner in front of you so you can try to nail down each pitch of the major scale. It says moving from pitch to pitch requires control and very subtle movements with your embouchure, jaw lip, and a jaw/lip and air column. So I will stop the share real quick. We're going to do a major scale on the mouthpiece. All right. So here's what it sounds like. There you go. And it's not the cleanest, okay? It's not the cleanest thing, but it's teaching you control. The more control you have, the better you're going to be able to perform these scoops, okay? So you want to make sure that you're doing that, practicing that. Let's go back to the PDF here, or the keynote. Falls, okay? Still with pitch bending, a fall is a short pitch bend or a long glissando. Using the same technique to bend the pitch down, a fall can be short or long. So a short fall is bending the pitch down quickly, and a long fall is bending the pitch down over time. So both fall types can be used in combination with fingers pressing keys down rapidly to help bring the pitch down even more significantly or more dramatically. So here we go. We're going to show this. So a short fall is going to sound like this. So I'm actually moving my fingers down the horn. I'm starting on a B, okay, saxophone B, and I'm moving my fingers down rapidly while at the same time bending the pitch down. okay? I'm also kind of easing off my breath, off of my air as I'm dropping the pitch. So it gives an effect of it actually decrescendoing as well. So we get this. Right? We can make it longer. There's a longer one, or I can make it short. There you go. So I'm using a little bit of pitch bend in my fall. A straight glissando is just moving your fingers and not manipulating the pitch at all. You can gliss down or you can gliss up. And the gliss is just... I'm kind of pushing my fingers down very rapidly, not in any particular order. You could do a chromatic thing if you want to let it go even longer. Now I can gliss up. It's not the same as a pitch bend going up, but it's a gliss. A gliss going up would be... Right? And I put a little bend on the last note, little scoop, right? Then you can do that. Speaking of going up, we're going to talk about a little thing called a doit. A doit. Now, a doit is very common for brass players. They're very easy for, well, not very easy. I shouldn't say that because I'm not a brass player, but I feel like they're easier. Maybe a brass player could call me out on that. There's no way I can do it. Brass playing for me is very, very tricky. I can play a little bit of trumpet. But anyway, a doit, pronounced doit, doit, okay? You could think D-O-Y-T. Doit is creating an ascending pitch bend, which can be short or long. Use the same starting point for a scoop, but add lifting of the fingers and tightening of the throat and jaw pressure. So here we are for a doit. Now, doits work very well on mid-range notes because you have somewhere to go. They don't work well on saxophone if you're starting on, say, like a high B, like I have been for the falls, because you don't have as far away or as much headroom in the upper register to go. So I'm going to start on a mid-range D, which is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the octave key. That's a doit. Doit, just like that. There's a doit, and I kind of did it on an E. So I'm bending the pitch up. Doit. Really fun. And doits can actually be in your jazz ensemble parts as well, indicated by a curve upwards after the note instead of before. It's the same shape as a scoop, just after the note and pointing upwards. So there's the doit. I'm using the same technique of the scoop by tightening and raising my tongue in the back, but I'm also using the finger movement, the glissando, all the way up to help create that pitch bend upwards. I can do it on higher notes, but it just doesn't go as far. There's your doit. All right, let's move on. And I'll go back to my PowerPoint. There we go. All right, vibrato. So vibrato is actually more of a common type of technique, but to be able to do it into the extreme, I'm going to go ahead and call it an extended technique because there's some extremes with vibrato. Vibrato is bending of the pitch while staying on a single note. Think of an opera singer, okay, or a classical flute or a classical string player they create vibrato on held out notes to add character and sweetness to the sound. So if you're listening to an opera and you hear the opera singers, oh, I'm not a great singer, but you hear that shaking of the tone, okay? That's vibrato. And opera singers have a very rich and thick vibrato, okay? Classical flute players also have vibrato. String players do it all the time using their left hand on the strings, and they kind of move their fingers or move the finger that they're pushing on the string back and forth very rapidly to create that shaking of the tone. And so it's a very common thing to bring sweetness to the tone. It's been used for hundreds of years. So vibrato can be used in multiple styles of playing. We already mentioned classical. Players from the early jazz period and swing era used a lot of vibrato in their playing. That was the style back then in the early 20s through the 30s. That was the style, to have a very, very thick vibrato. And it's borrowing from the previous types of music eras, like the Romantic period and the Classical period. Okay, so vibrato became more reserved for jazz saxophone players as time passed, and players would use a variety of types of vibrato. So when we're playing jazz ballads, there are some saxophone players that use very little vibrato, and there are some that use a lot of vibrato. Okay, the straight tone was starting to get more used in some jazz genres, and in others, when you play a ballad, it added a little sweetness to the sound and did the vibrato. If you listen to Sidney Bechet, who is a soprano saxophonist, I'm going to stop screen sharing. His vibrato was very, very, very distinct, and almost sounded classical. It was very almost overdone in a way, but that was the style. Again, Sidney Bechet, B-E-C-H-E-T. Check him out. Early jazz saxophone player, soprano saxophone. But listen to some of those recordings from the 20s, from Louis Armstrong's Hot Fives and Hot Sevens recordings, the original Dixieland Jazz Band. Let's see, I'm trying to think of other ones, but if you go to redhotjazz.com, this is an aside, redhotjazz.com, it's going to give you a list of a ton of the pre-swing era jazz bands, and they have music clips and historical notes. It's a fantastic website. Check it out if you want to get into some of that early recording stuff. Let's see here. We're going to go back to this real quick and talk more about vibrato. So you want to create vibrato by doing small pitch bends, usually controlled by opening and closing the jaw rapidly. Now, we can also do this by muscle movement in our lips rather than a lot of jaw, because we're going to talk about how that affects the vibrato. Doing the exercises for pitch bending will assist in creating various degrees of vibrato. So let's talk about this. There are two aspects or two dichotomies in vibrato. There is a wide versus a narrow vibrato. A wide vibrato indicates a great variation in pitch bend, while a narrow vibrato has very little pitch bend. So I'm going to demonstrate those. I don't think I need to stop screen share. We'll just do an audio on this. But a wide vibrato is going to sound like this, a lot of pitch bend. And I'm kind of over-exaggerating that. But you can hear the pitch bend. Very, very great pitch bend. A narrow vibrato has very little pitch bend. So here's a narrow vibrato. I hope the audio is able to pick that up, but it's very slight. Now, there is a degree. These are on kind of a flexible scale. You can go extreme wide and extreme narrow, but most saxophone players are probably in between in their personal styles, or depending on the style they're playing. So wide versus narrow. My vibrato, depending on the style, I can just go. So there you go. There's some demonstration of wide versus narrow. Again, it's on a spectrum. Look at fast and slow. Fast versus slow. Fast vibrato indicates more vibrato pulses. Okay, so more of the wah, 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 right? Slow vibrato indicates less vibrato pulses. So wah, 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 wah. All right, so I'm not even doing pitch bend to demonstrate. So here we go. Let me go ahead and stop the screen share so you can see. But I'm going to do a fast vibrato. It can be fast and wide or fast and narrow. Here's fast and wide. Very extreme, right? Let's do fast and narrow. So faster pulses, not as much pitch bend, right? Not as much pitch bend. I'm doing this a lot with lip and jaw movement. Very subtle, very subtle. Let's talk about the slow. So we can have slow and wide vibrato. Sounds kind of corny and campy, but I'm doing it slowly and more widely. Here's a slow but narrow vibrato. So those are the two extremes. Now, you can practice these in the extremes and variants of those. There's just a spectrum with all four of these aspects going on, and that creates so much variety in playing and personal expression. So listen to saxophone players. You can listen to other players, or non-saxophone players, but listen and pay attention to their vibrato, especially on longer notes. For instance, Cannonball Adderley, a great alto sax player, his vibrato sounds much more classical and dated than a lot of other saxophone players. If you listen to Charlie Parker, in contrast, Charlie Parker doesn't do a lot with his vibrato. It just depends. Sometimes it's a little more, but it's not as wide as Cannonball Adderley's vibrato. So, we're talking about alto players. There's lots of tenor players out there too. You want to compare, just compare vibratos. Listen and really, really critically listen and see, okay, can I reproduce that? How do I do that? Transcription is a good way to do that. And I think I've talked about transcription before, but copying the style, that's where you're going to learn how to use your vibrato properly, and listening a lot and paying attention. Okay, this is a ballad. How is he using it over a ballad? How are all these saxophone players interpreting a ballad? Let's look at the faster playing tunes. Is there a lot of vibrato on that? Probably not, because the tune is moving so quickly. There's not enough time. It just doesn't fit the character of the piece probably. So, do some research, do some listening, pay attention. You'll figure out how to do that vibrato. All right, let's go back here. I knew this topic was going to probably take quite a while. We've only covered a couple, and it's almost been an hour. So I'm going to try to move fastly. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Altissimo. Altissimo is one of those things that everybody wants to learn when they're starting to learn saxophone. It's a very interesting and tricky technique. Altissimo refers to the extended upper range of the saxophone, notes above your written high F, no matter what saxophone you play. Excuse me, the high F is the highest range, and a lot of saxophones nowadays, they come with an extra key that allows you to go to the written high F sharp. But we can extend the range from that, and saxophone players have been doing this for decades, okay? Altissimo is used extensively among professional players of all styles, including classical, jazz, rock, funk, R&B, fusion, any kind of style. You're going to be able to find somebody playing some altissimo, okay? It adds so much more punch to your lines, and it can create a great sense of tension and flash to your playing. Now, it can be performed on all saxophones, alto, tenor, baritone. I'm going to switch over to the tenor for my demonstration on alto, or altissimo. Most altissimo we went to the next slide there. But most Altissimo practice begins with the study of overtones. Now, I've included a little article on overtones here, and we're not going to address that right now, but you can check that out at your leisure. I'm just going to wet my reed. There's my tenor. So I'm going to scratch the surface for the purpose of this masterclass, but you can go ahead and check out more because there's just so much to cover on overtones. But overtones are a good place to start for your Altissimo studies. So you want to practice the overtone series on your saxophone, starting with the low B flat and chromatically making your way to low D. If you're not familiar with the overtone series on saxophone, go ahead and do a Google search and look it up. But I'm going to briefly explain. What happens is when you play the fundamental lower notes of your instrument, you can manipulate the air column without changing your fingering to produce the overtone series. And the overtone series starts with the fundamental. The first overtone series produces an octave above that. Okay? And then it produces a perfect fifth above that. And then it produces a perfect fourth above that. And then we get into smaller incremental notes, and I'll demonstrate here. But let's go ahead and stop the screen share. So I'm on my tenor because I love doing overtones on tenor. The bigger the instrument, sometimes the easier the overtone series can be. So on tenor, I'm going to start with a low B flat. Whoa, hey, look out. So that's the low B flat. Now, if I tighten up a little bit in my embouchure and move my the back of my tongue up slightly, I'll be able to produce the octave above low B flat without changing my fingering. So here we go. So there it is. There's the octave above. Now, if I go to that, I can produce another perfect fifth above that, which would be the F on top of the treble clef staff for tenor saxophone. Again, I am not moving my fingers at all. I'm not doing the F to produce this. Okay, that's the second overtone. Then the next one is going to go a perfect fifth above that, and it goes to the original note 2 octaves higher. So it's going to be the high B flat. Now, I've had a lot of practice in this, and I can produce each one individually without having to start low, but you're going to want to start low to try to reach those. There's a lot of books out there on the overtone series. You can probably do a quick Google search and find out a lot of information on, there's just so much out there now. I mean, I have books on it back when, you know, it wasn't as widely available on the internet, and I was learning it from teachers. But nowadays, you can look this stuff up from professionals who publish articles or free articles. You can find this stuff. It's amazing. So I would practice trying to go to those first few overtone series up and down. To produce these, it's all very subtle in your embouchure and the tongue. Controlling the air column and raising the tongue to a certain degree to get and manipulate the air column to produce the sound. Now we can go higher, and that's where Altissimo is going to start to play into effect. So after that, it goes up a major third to a high D. And you can hear the tone starting to crack a little bit. Now I have to draw my, the higher I go, the tighter I have to make my embouchure. I have to draw my lips back over my teeth and really, really be firm. And that's how I'm able to get these. So we go another one, a minor third is next, and it'll go to high F. Once again, I'm fingering low B flat for all of this. Okay, this is all done here. Okay, now the next one is another minor third, and it goes to high A flat. Now this one is altissimo because it goes above high F. So this is the beginning of altissimo. So here's a high F. Did high F to high A flat. And then after that, it goes another whole step to B flat. It gets harder to control from there. You can continue to go up a little bit more. But yeah, that's where I would start. There are overtones exercises in that link provided in the PDF, which I will go ahead and email to Steve. He'll be able to put that up, or someone at the Clearwater Jazz Holiday will put that up on the education website under our masterclass, and you can access that. So that's the start to your altissimo, is playing the overtone series. Now, this can be done on tenor, alto, baritone, a little bit of soprano, but oh my goodness, soprano, that's really hard. So here we are. Special fingerings are required for each altissimo note, and this is anything above high F. These fingerings can vary depending not only on the type of saxophone that you have, like alto, tenor, etc., but also on the make of the saxophone, like Selmer, Kahn, Yamaha. I play a Yamaha tenor, but I play a Yanagisawa alto and a Yanagisawa soprano. I play a Cannonball Barry. The fingerings are all different. I actually have, and let me look at this real quick. I'm going to show this to you, a book that you can get if you want to, if you're into books. I love books. Books are great. You might be able to find this online. Buy it. I also subscribe to Scribd, S-C-R-I-B-D, D as in dog.com. I pay a monthly subscription, and some of these books you can find on Scribd in digital form, and they allow you to download them because you pay a subscription. But this is a really great altissimo book that I have by Dr. Robert Lucky called Saxophone Altissimo, and it gives fingerings for alto, tenor, baritone, altissimo. And there can be different fingerings for the same note. That's the tricky part. That is the tricky part. So there's lots of different fingerings for each note, and I'll demonstrate a couple of them, but I know we're probably running short on time. So back to the PDF. It says, for some altissimo notes or multiple fingerings, we said that for the same note, experiment and find what works for your horn. A simple Google search nowadays will give you a myriad of fingerings. All you got to do is just look up tenor sax altissimo fingerings. Boom. It's going to pop right up, and then just start trying them. Again, if you want to really study it, check out the Saxophone Altissimo book. Another source that I use, and I can't seem to find it, I might have lost it, I hope not, but it's more of the classical realm. It's Top Tones for Saxophone. It's by a classical saxophonist and educator, Sigurd Rascher. So Top Tones for Saxophone, if you're interested, and keep going. Note, altissimo notes are harder to produce using a more closed mouthpiece or when using a softer or worn out reed. Okay, a harder or stiffer reed will assist in getting the altissimo register to speak. So you're going to have trouble if your reed is worn out. Okay, a newer reed or a stiffer reed might be better for you there on the altissimo. So real quick, couple of altissimo fingerings I want to share. So on tenor, and I know a lot of people want to do tenor, the high G. High G is a couple of them. You can use your front F mechanism only and your thumb key, and that will produce the high G. Okay. You can also add, sometimes that one's not as easy to speak, add the side B flat key, and you can produce that too. Maybe a slight pitch difference. High A, I like to use the octave key and then second finger and third finger on the left hand. Sometimes I'll add 1 or 2 or 3 of these depending on the pitch, but I can get a high A from there. If I add the first finger, it goes down a half step to G sharp. If I add 2 fingers, the F and E key, we have a slight microtonal difference there. And if I add all 3, sorry, my reed's cracking a little bit. But yeah, there's some altissimo notes with the G and the A for the tenor saxophone. I have a couple of other ones for others, but I want you to go ahead and search those. We could spend more time on that, but we don't have that kind of time. So, you know, do the research, you know, figure it out, ask a private teacher, you know, or ask me. You know, I'm available to for anyone who is interested. I'm also available for lessons. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. And now here's one that's really interesting: circular breathing. Circular breathing can be used as a way to keep the phrase going uninterrupted by breath, or as a parlor trick. I like to call it the parlor trick in improvising. This technique involves storing spare air in your oral cavity, closing off your throat, and using your nose to inhale while at the same time expelling the stored air out through the mouth into the instrument. Whew, yeah, circular breathing. That's one thing I learned early on. Even before college, I learned how to do it. And I've used it a lot in my soloing and improvisation as an effect to really grab people's attention or create tension in my improvisations. I know a lot of other players out there that do that. In fact, one of our great local jazz trumpet players does it all the time. James Suggs. If you've ever watched James Suggs play, you can guarantee he's using some circular breathing sometimes. And sometimes he's not, which is really impressive because he has so much more resistance in a trumpet mouthpiece than I would in a saxophone mouthpiece. He can hold that note so much longer, but that's a testament to how good he really is and how much he has trained his abdominal muscles and his endurance in air support to be able to do that. So check out some James Suggs. You'll definitely see some circular breathing going on, or you can check me out because I can do some too. All right, so to understand the mechanics of this, begin by filling your oral cavity with air while pursing your lips. And in other words, puff your cheeks, okay? And I'll demonstrate this in a minute. With your cheeks puffed, you should be able to breathe through your nose. So you're probably trying to do that right now, and that's great. With no one else around, because you don't want to spit on people, expel the air through your pursed lips using only your cheek muscles, which should make a weird noise, like a slow leaking balloon or something like that. While expelling the air, try to breathe in through your nose. This may take some practice, so it's about coordination. Okay, another experiment, which I'm going to show you shortly, is to try to use a glass of water and a straw. Try to blow the bubbles in through the straw and keeping the bubbles going while attempting to breathe in through the nose. Here we go. First one, puffing the cheeks, okay? And expelling the air only with your cheeks. So if I puff my cheeks, I can breathe through my nose. Right? Looks funny. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to puff my cheeks, and I'm going to just expel it using my cheek muscles. So it takes some pressure with your lips. You don't want to just go, that's not how it works. You need resistance. That's why we keep our lips closed and we allow a little bit to escape. So again, like a interesting sound, let's say, or a leaking balloon or an air leaking, something leaking air. Right? Now, you want to coordinate that with trying to breathe in, because when you just use your cheeks, you can cut your airflow off and just breathe through your nose. So right? Just like that. And then you just release your air that you've taken in, and that's circular breathing. I know this is a very short lesson on it, but here's my glass of water and straw. So I'm gonna blow bubbles because the water creates some resistance, okay? Now you wanna try to keep the bubbles going and at the same time store some air in your cheeks and then try to breathe in through your nose and then just lower your tongue so that your airway is resumed, and then you can just keep blowing. So here we go. I don't know if you can hear or see a lot of that, but that is a good way to try to practice circular breathing without as much resistance. Then you can try it on your instrument. Now, I should say, when you practice this, please be careful not to pass out. Because if you're taking too many breaths, when you do this, you can get stale air that's not being expelled quickly enough. And that will get you dizzy. Believe me, I've done it. I've gotten dizzy. I've almost passed out. So please, please, please be careful when you practice this. You can also do a Google search on circular breathing. You want a little bit more explanation and detail. That's about as much as I can do at this point. But there is a couple of there's a circular breathing book out there, and I can't remember the name of it. But I learned this all from an article in Downbeat when I was in high school, and actually from a flute player, because flute players can do it, but it's harder because you can't compromise this embouchure by inflating your cheeks. So it is possible to do it. Brass players, definitely possible to do it. Woodwind players, definitely possible to do it. However, the smaller the instrument, the more resistance you're going to get, and that's a little bit easier to perform it, but there's also a higher risk of you passing out because if you take too much breath in on your nose and you're storing all that stale air and you can't expel it, you're going to get dizzy, okay? So really, really, really be careful. All right, let's keep going. I'm sorry this is so short. I had a lot on my mind to cover. Again, this technique relies on tight-lipped embouchure and resistance. It's easier to perform this on higher resistance horns, alto, soprano, and on softer reeds as well. Now, this link in the description or in the keynote here, a brief lesson from a sax player most known for circular breathing. I bet you can guess who it is. Should I tell you? It's Kenny G. Okay? Kenny G. Kenny G brought that circular breathing to the forefront in the early 80s and 90s with his smooth jazz saxophone stuff. Songbird is one of those. And honestly, I listened to Kenny G when I was younger, and that's what got me intrigued. But I really learned how to do it from an article in Downbeat. So anyway, you can check that link out. It's just a brief, like 2-minute, 3-minute lesson. All right, double and triple tonguing. We're on our way. So double tonguing is a common extended technique used when needing to articulate many fast notes, smaller rhythmic value notes, i.e. 16th or 32nd notes. And I also use what I call a triple tongue, which involves a unique tongue movement on the mouthpiece. And I'm going to talk about that later. So let's talk about double tonguing first. Double tonguing is performed by using the syllables ta and ka, literally. The ta is the tongue on the reed, while the ka is the back of the tongue on the upper palate, just like saying ka, 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 but with more force because you need to air to follow through with it. Start by slowly articulating ta and ka while playing a lower resistance note, say like B or C, without the octave key. This takes some practice, especially for the ka syllable, because as more air is needed to produce the tone with this syllable. So I will demonstrate very quickly on alto. So there's the ta, And the second one was the ka, ta, ka. So there's your double tongue. Now, a lot of players work this skill up really well. I have not. I'm not great at the double tongue. I actually can single tongue faster than double tongue. So I like to do that. Now, the other thing we're talking that I like to do with the tongue is the triple tonguing. So triple tonguing. So I will sometimes use triple tonguing as an effect on a single note. Number one, I start with the initial contact of the tongue and reed instead of retracting the tongue, I extend it forward and above the mouthpiece. On the second attack is made with the underside of the tongue as I bring it down over top of the mouthpiece and reed. The third attack is a normal tongue attack on the reed. Excuse me. So, you repeat those steps 1 through 3 quickly to produce the triple tongue. This is similar to a brass player technique of the doodle or duddle tonguing. And that sounds like duddle, 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 or duddle, 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 or doodle, 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 duddle. If you practice saying that very quickly, like I just did, duddle, 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 doodle, 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 doodle. Okay, you can get that triple tongue type of effect, which can also be performed on the saxophone. So here's my deal. I'm going to do the first one where I take the tongue and I go ta, and then I come back down over the reed and then back again. So and then I repeat that. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, well, I messed up the last one. So here is that effect. There's the triple tongue that I like to use. Now, if you keep that going and don't add the last, if you don't have the break, then you can just go, I will sometimes do like back and forth with my tongue, ba-da-da, like up and down, up and down, up and down. And there's what that sounds like. It's hard to control, and I continue to work on it, but. So it's about control. Got to keep practicing it to keep it up. All right, there's triple tonguing. Muffle tonguing. This is a really important thing for jazz players. Muffle tonguing, and I think Tammy Danielson called this something else, and I can't remember what she called it, but it's called muffle tonguing. You can see her masterclass for it, and she's probably going to explain it a lot better than I can, but muffle tonguing is used a lot in jazz and bebop playing. The technique consists of placing the tongue on the reed while you're playing, essentially muting or muffling the sound. Many jazz saxophonists use this technique in order to bring out well-timed accents in improvised lines by muffling certain tones. So Charlie Parker, Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, Dexter Gordon, Cannonball Adderley, the list goes on and on and on and on. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate here, but we're going to start by placing the tongue, playing a note on the saxophone and slowly bringing the tip of the tongue to the reed. Do not allow the reed to stop vibrating. It's going to feel weird, okay? You may need to use more air at first. Some players choose to use the tip of the tongue to the actual tip of the reed, okay? Other players, like myself, prefer to use one side of the tip of the tongue to the side of the reed, the other tip, side of the tip. I particularly use the left side of the tongue, my tongue, and I hit the right side of the reed, okay? Charlie Parker would use this technique in various 16th note and fast note passages, giving the effect of muffling the notes ascending to the goal note of the phrase. This can also be used as a ghost note effect, and that's another technique I didn't include in this, but it's a pretty easy one. Effect for certain notes to create interesting and characteristic jazz accents in a phrase or line. A ghost note is just fingering the note and not playing it. That's all a ghost note is, okay? There's a difference between muffled tongue and ghost note. Ghosting a note is usually indicated by parentheses around the note, but we're not going to talk too much about that. But let me go to the muffled tongue. So, sounds like this. I'm using this side of my tongue to the opposite side of the reed on the side, the tip. So we get that muffle, and the accent comes from removing the tongue from the muffled sound, okay? So if I played G, A, B, and I muffled the A, it sounds like this. So I'm muffling every other note in that scale. Charlie Parker would use it in a run. Here's one of Charlie Parker's famous runs. Just part of it. Da 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 da. If I don't do the muffle, it sounds like this. But if I muffle, you can hear there's a bigger emphasis on the goal note of that little rising line. And it creates this ba-lat instead of ba-da-da-da-da, ba-la-da-da-da-da, and here's the full lick. So you could probably hear which ones are muffled if I play it slow enough. Now, if you study Charlie Parker, you'll notice how he places the accents of his notes. Not always, it's very syncopated. And that's mimicking of the snare drum in the bebop drumming, where the snare drum and the bass drum is kind of feathered. That's the technique they use, right? So it's creating that syncopation. So if you analyze the accents that Charlie Parker does, not just his licks, his accents, you will discover that they line up just like the accenting of the snare drum in bebop drumming. I guarantee it. Go check it out. Transcribes from Charlie Parker. Listen to the Omnibook and follow along. Notate where the accents fall. Really, really critically listen and see if you can find that. And that's where you'll start to learn how to play that bebop characteristic style. So there you go. Now, if I'm just playing on my own, I can use the muffled tongue. Da, 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 da. That's how I kind of vocalize it. Da, I say the N. Da, da, and that's how I vocalize the muffled tongue. So when you hear do da do da 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 do da do da do da da do da. When I say that's how I'm trying to vocalize where I'm using the muffled tongue. All right. Thank you so much, Steve. I'm going to keep going, if that's okay. We're almost finished. I've got a few more to talk about. Slap tonguing. This is such a great one, and I use it a lot. Slap tonguing is a technique that produces a slapping sound from the saxophone. There are two types of slap tongue, an open slap and a closed slap. So the open slap produces a loud popping sound with some pitch tone, a little bit of pitch tone. And the closed slap produces a plucking and muted type of sound that sounds similar to a guitar or bass. The open slap, all right, and I'm going to use my tenor for this. Tenor is a bigger and more resonant horn when it comes to slap tonguing, in my opinion. So it might come off a little bit more cleanly. Start with the tongue on the reed in normal playing position. For the open slap, use a quick burst of air into the mouthpiece while also opening the jaw, bringing the bottom lip completely off of the mouthpiece. This will create a loud popping noise. Oh, I said noise. Oops, spelling error. For the open slap tongue, use different fingerings to vary the timbre of the tone. So I'm going to do it on just a G, and we'll come back to here. Here's a G, open slap. So I'm forcing the air through, starting with my tongue on the reed, inside my mouth, okay, on the reed, like I'm actually covering the entire reed with my tongue. Not just the tip, the entire reed, up to my bottom lip, wherever it's lying. Okay, and then I lift my jaw off with the force, and it creates that popping sound. So if I do it on other notes, let's go down. I'm going to go G, F, E, D, C. I don't know if this audio is picking it up, but there's a little bit of pitch in there. And you can run out of breath very quickly doing this a lot. So when you're practicing, once again, like circular breathing, don't get dizzy. When you get dizzy, stop, take a break, breathe, okay? All right, let's talk about the closed slap. And this one, I've got a lot of colleagues and other saxophone players and friends who are just like, how do you do this? Some can do it. Some have a really hard time doing it, but it's something that's always come natural to me. Produce the closed slap tongue effect. Start again with the tongue on the reed in normal playing position. This time, you're going to press the tongue hard against the reed, closing off the opening. Similar to what you did with the open slap, the sides of the tongue should also cover the sides of the reed. So you're using your entire tongue against the reed, not outside your lips, okay? That's the limit. With a burst of air, forcefully pull the tongue down and away from the reed, allowing the air to flow briefly through the mouthpiece. The effect should sound similar to a guitar or bass tone. Now you're going to keep your lip on the mouthpiece. That's the difference. Okay, don't raise your jaw off the mouthpiece or your lip. You're going to keep your jaw and lip on the mouthpiece. Okay, continue to blow through the horn after releasing the tongue to produce a muted type of tone. This is a trickier technique to master and will take some practice. So here we go. We're going to do the closed slap. So my mouth is not going to move off the mouthpiece, but the tongue is going to do the same thing as the open slap, but I'm not going to move my jaw or my lip. So it sounds like this. Kind of sounds like a plucking string of some sort or a bass or whatever it is. It's really, I've had people say, oh God, it sounds like a guitar, man. Now, if I continue to blow, I can keep the sound going. And it's not the prettiest sound, but we're going for the slap effect here and the muted type of sound. So now if I use it in context, I can do something like this. There's the close slap. My favorite. I love it. All right, let's move on. I'm almost finished. And the growl. Okay. Growling technique is used to add character and excitement to your improvisations. Saxophone players that use this technique a lot, and there's way more than this, but Junior Walker, Illinois Jacquette, David Fathead Newman, these guys are like the Texas tenors, okay? King Curtis, Gato Barbieri. If anybody's heard of Gato Barbieri, his growling sound is so signature to him. That's his signature sound, is to play with the growl. Clarence Clements, if you've heard saxophone solo on almost any Bruce Springsteen album, recently before he passed away, he was on Lady Gaga's Edge of Glory. It was right before he passed away. That's Clarence Clements, okay? That growly, kind of raspy, guttural type of sound, that's the growl, all right? Now, there's a few different types of ways to produce the growl. Number one is the vocal growl, and I use this exclusively. Using the voice while playing can produce a growling effect. The trick is not to vocalize too close to the pitch you're playing. To demonstrate this, try vocalizing the same note you are trying to play. I'll show you in a minute. There's no specific rule here except your voice should be far enough away from the pitches to not clash with the frequencies of the pitches. Experiment to see what you like. Here's the demonstration, okay, in the growling. So I'm going to use a C, just a middle finger C on tenor, and I'm vocalizing here. I'm taking the mouthpiece out, and you can hear me just going, All it is activating your voice while you're playing. And it sounds weird. You're just like, okay. But that's it. Now, if I try to hum or produce, and I'm humming lower, okay, the closer you get to that pitch, the more the frequencies will start to align, and the reed will feel weird, and you won't be able to actually make a sound. It'll just be your voice. So here's the demonstration of that. So I was like raising and lowering my voice, and when it all lined up, it was just me humming. It's like the reed doesn't vibrate because your voice is vibrating at the same frequency, so it cancels it out. And as you lower down, as you lower your voice, then you start to feel the waves. It's just like two instruments that are out of tune, and one just continues to go down while the other stays. It's the same concept, only you're using your voice. So I will sometimes vary my voice depending on the higher pitch. So if I use in the higher pitches, it's not going to sound as effective. It's going to sound way, way, way low pitch. So you want to raise the voice a little bit to get the pitch you want. So if I want to do the C high, I can't do the same vocal timbre pitch. I got to raise my voice a little bit so I can get the proper growl. So there's the growl. That's the vocal growl. Okay, that's the vocal growl. We're going to go back here, and the second type of growl is flutter tongue. Using the tip of the tongue to create the growl, use the rolling R sound against the reed. If you've taken a foreign language, you'll know what a rolling R is. You'll be able to say the R, like sometimes in Spanish where they say rrr, rrr, rolling the tip of the tongue against the top palate behind your teeth, rrr, right? That's the rolling R. This technique is prone to lowering the pitch, so be careful. So here's the rolling growl. I have to actually back off the mouthpiece to make that happen. And that's not my favorite way to growl. But if you practice it, you can get it down really, really well. So, you know, I can do it a little bit. Not my favorite one. I haven't mastered the control of that yet. Last type of growl that you can do is the guttural R growl technique. So this uses the guttural R, which is produced by slightly closing the throat and allowing your uvula, which is the little dangly thing in the back of your throat, to slightly touch the back of the tongue while you exhale through the instrument. German language and many European language dialects use the guttural R sound almost like a dry gargle. So I learned how to do the guttural R in 8th and 9th grade when I took German. I did take some German and learned how to do the rolling R in the back of the throat with the uvula. Okay, and it's just closing your throat enough for the uvula to come down and touch your tongue as you like that. So you can do the same thing in the saxophone. And again, that one can lower the pitch slightly on that. So it might play a little flat. Practice it a lot. You can use it. My preferred way of growling, just for me, is the vocal one. It's easier to do. I think it's the easiest of the three types. All right, 2 more topics very quickly and we're done. Subtone is a technique, creating a breathy tone, type of tone on the lower end of the saxophone. This can be done by releasing the jaw a bit and allowing more air into the tone on the lower part of the register. It can also be created by relaxing the jaw, but not the bottom lip. This technique is used to create a sweeter and softer airy tone, breathy tone. Ben Webster, Lester Young, Paul Gonsalves. Okay, lots of cats can do this subtone, and sometimes it might even be notated in your music. So here's a subtone type of sound. Actually, I'll play the first, like a low note phrase without subtone. Okay, here's the low note phrase. Let me do that one more time. Now I'm going to do subtone. So clearly the dynamics are less. I'm using less mouthpiece in my mouth. I'm relaxing my jaw. I'm letting my lip kind of support more than my jaw a little bit on the subtone. You can also do this by opening your jaw and relaxing the bottom lip, but not letting it go. Okay. Sometimes if you're playing a big band chart and your charts go really low or it says subtone, you don't want to be like that hard raucous sound, especially if it's a ballad and you've written low. If you're playing tenor sax 2 chair, you know what I'm talking about. That's the torture chair in the saxophone section, is the tenor sax 2 chair. Okay, that's the torture chair, because your lines are all crazy and they're everywhere and a lot of low notes, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if it says subtone, you got to play it really soft down low. You're going to use that subtone to create that nice breathy tone without compromising the integrity of what you're trying to play. All right, last topic. Thank you so much for sticking with me, friends. If you're watching, or if you've watched this video this far, you are a trooper. You really want to learn all these techniques, so kudos to you. Multiphonics. This is not something I'm super adept at, but it's definitely something that we have to address, because multiphonics are used quite a bit by some of the saxophone players that you've probably heard before if you're a saxophone player or a studier of saxophone players. Multiphonics is using different fingering combinations to produce multiple tones simultaneously. Typically 2 tones, but it can be 3, I think. I'm not sure. But most of the time, it's just like 2 tones in there. These fingerings may vary by instrument type. Some are very similar to each saxophone, like tenor, alto, soprano, bari. That's what I'm talking about when I say type. Notable players for using these techniques: Michael Brecker, first one for me comes to mind. John Coltrane, also. Pharoah Sanders, David Sanborn, Eddie Harris. Lots of different players out there. These are just some of a few. I've included a link to Multiphonics. It does a little bit better of a description on what I can do here, but you can also do a Google search and find a lot of sources. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple of Multiphonics that I know. So Multiphonics, let's see, on tenor, and actually on alto too, I can create a multiphonic fingering by going 1, 2, 3, like a G, and then low C, but then removing my first finger F. So everything's down except my first finger F on my right hand, and this creates a multiphonic. Doesn't that sound nice? But there's tons of saxophone players that do this. Another one that can be created, and I kind of experiment to find them, but if I play low B flat and remove my low C key down here, you get that one. You can also do, I think you can do a C sharp one. No, B. So there's some multiphonics. I don't know many multiphonics. I haven't found, for me personally, I haven't found a great use for them in my playing. I'm a very melodic player and I like to do melodic things. I don't tend to play on the crazy side of things. Sometimes I get a little wild and, you know, bite the reed and go a little crazy, like but not very often. But there are definitely saxophone players out there that do that kind of stuff exclusively. John Zorn, if you ever check out some of John Zorn's stuff, oh my goodness. It's just wild and out there and crazy. Not my type of player, but definitely someone you can be aware of for extended techniques. So anyway, I think that wraps it up. My goodness, I've gone way over an hour. I think it's been an hour and a half, but that does it for my presentation on extended saxophone techniques, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you got any other questions, you know, let me know, please. I'm happy to assist in any way I can.
Yeah, what a great session, Austin, man. Thank you so much for going the extra mile like you always do, man. It was awesome. And what great information to include in the studio resource for really people, students of all ages, to follow and enjoy. I really appreciate you two taking the time to do that PowerPoint or keynote. I think that is incredible. And I'm just really excited to get it up. Austin's going to be back with us. I think his next one is on June 15th on rhythmic vocabulary, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have you back with us. And is that also on a Tuesday? Let's check that out.
I think it is. I think it's a week from today.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna have Austin back with us for another great session. And on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, all of our partners and supporters, thank you for following along. Thank you for being part of this. And you know, stay safe out there. Keep practicing. Keep playing. Keep being creative. And we'll see everybody back with us real soon. Take care, Austin.
Take care, Steve. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.